That's right. Welcome into the Love of the Star podcast with Eric Chiafalo alongside the Super Bowl champion Brian Broaddus, live from his Crown Global Media Studios, rocking and rolling. Make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel for Crown Global Media as well. But we appreciate you rocking with us here on Love of the Star, presented by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner of the Dallas Cowboys and the Love of the Star podcast. Just go to the ontimeexperts.com, click the book now button, and let them take care of you at the highest level. Broaddus, we now turn our sights to the Commanders, but man, this has been tough. This has been tough. After that Panthers game, we're all trying to pick up the pieces right now with a run defense that got absolutely shellacked. The pass defense wasn't a whole lot better, but it was the Rico show, and the offense kind of just didn't get things going in that fourth quarter. But as you look around the league right now, and especially in the NFC, you're like, man, we still got opportunities. How can we bounce back now that the Commanders just lost on Monday Night Football as well? We know what happened to the Eagles last week. There is no elite dominant presence really in the NFL right now. And so if you're the Cowboys, you got to be trying to find ways to get your defense to a standard that can get you somewhere, because right now we feel like there's a chance.
Yeah, there's a chance. And, maybe, your hope is that others don't figure it out while you're trying to figure it out as well, with the Commanders and watching them on offense. I think it's going to be an interesting challenge, for the Cowboys, especially with how Carolina had success running the football. I think the one thing the Commanders can do pretty well is they kind of give you that college offense look, but they have players in place, whether it's the quarterback, the running back. The scheme is really good. The play call is really good when it comes to trying to kind of get some plays together, to string plays together. But yeah, this is it's a very difficult situation for Dallas, because you kind of feel like that you've kind of given away a couple of games. And you can even look back to, you had a chance to beat Philadelphia in week 1, just couldn't get it done. You had a chance, to beat the Packers. You tie them. The Bears game was a bad game, and the Carolina game, just the inability to play any kind of run defense. So you kind of feel like you had a chance to win some games maybe you weren't supposed to win, and you lost some games you probably should have won, with some better play. And unfortunately, that's where you're at right now, with I think a difficult part of the schedule coming up. You look at the teams, past the bye. Right now, you're looking at, this game against Commanders, very important division game. You can't be dropping division games. You've already dropped one to Philadelphia. You've beaten the Giants. You got to make sure you take care of those games. But yeah, with the Commanders and then the Broncos in Denver, yeah, you've got to find a way to play better defensively. And if you don't, then you're going to find yourself way behind everybody else, because I think other teams are going to start to figure some things out too.
Yeah, for sure. And right now with this defense, there's so many issues. And I think we have to acknowledge first that the Cowboys put a bad group of players. They put a bad group of players together on the field and asked Matt Eberflus to do something with it. I don't know how much Eberflus is really helping you. I think that you've pointed out some good moments where, hey, he drew it up. Here we go. Yeah. And guy misses the play. What was it? The first play of the game versus Carolina? Yeah. Wanye Thomas right there to make a play, misses the tackle. Yeah. Are you noticing him trying to do some different things?
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing he's somewhat set in his ways about how much zone defense he wants to play. He is starting to implement more man coverage stuff. But if I could circle back, Eric, to what you brought up, there are things that he has tried to do in that Carolina game that was okay. Let's go back to the Jets game. Some of the different things that they were able to do scheme wise to generate pass rush. with moving defensive tackles to one side, using the loop twist game, stuff like that. He's trying to create pass rush, and against a quarterback that got confused in Justin Fields, he was able to kind of take advantage of that. And he did a really good job of attacking the Jets' offensive line, attacking the tackles. The scheme I thought was really good. They gave up some in the run game. They weren't particularly good at the defensive tackle spot in that game. They haven't been really good at linebacker when it came to defending the run, but rushing the passer was a very, very positive sign, and some things that he was able to generate. In the Carolina game, he got in a situation where he was trying to he started to play a little bit more like heavier box. It really didn't help him all that much. He tried to do some run blitz stuff. We talked about, bringing the safety down, getting the safety home. Wanye Thomas misses the tackle. Just one example. Sam Williams playing an inside technique, takes an inside charge. Maris Leofau playing the edge. Damone Clark doesn't get over the top. Now the ball spills to the outside. And so he was trying to do things from a schemes perspective to maybe create some blocking problems for Carolina. One guy does his job, two guys does his job, third guy doesn't get there. Now you have a big game. And that seems to be kind of a theme for his team. He seems to have guys. This is another, they play a ton of zone coverage. I challenge anybody to tell me, and I'll probably prove them wrong about this. Tell me the last time one of these corners, whether it's Diggs or Bland, has knocked down a football, playing 7 yards off and all. I think I saw a stat the other day where I was just, it's a little bit mind boggling that the way that Dallas has just really, really struggled when it comes to even getting their hands on footballs that way, knocking down passes and stuff. So, there's things that he's tried to do, and his players have let him down. There's been some things that maybe they've tried a little bit scheme wise and in coverage that really hasn't translated very well. It hasn't translated very well to what's going on with, how they're playing the coverage, whether it's the zone or the man coverage stuff. They're not very coordinated with the linebackers, coordinated with the corners, coordinated with the safeties. Been a big issue.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's been a huge issue. And you still have guys that you kind of feel like are playing a little bit out of position. Donovan Wilson in coverage is just going to be a disaster. And I don't know how many more times we have to look at it to know that that's the case. But he's still being misused. And when it comes to the zone or man stuff, I mean, right now, I really don't even think it matters. Diggs is just not himself. Bland is not himself. And your safeties aren't very good. And the biggest thing is you don't have a pass rush. You don't have a pass rush. Now, don't tell that to Jerry Jones, because he was on with Sean and RJ just yesterday, Tuesday morning, and he's talking about how deep and capable and how awesome the pass rush is and how that's a strength for the team. And I have no idea how you can watch these 6 games other than the Jets game, which that's a Jets team and quarterback who just got sacked 9 times and had -10 net passing yards versus the Broncos. That's an outlier, disgusting team that you were able to take advantage of. But this entire season, you've had great opportunities versus some shaky offensive lines, and you aren't getting a pass rush. So I don't think this secondary has much of a chance anyways, because they're just not very good and they're not getting any help from a pass rush. And when you saw Bland and Diggs at the height of their powers, the Cowboys were like one of the top pass rushing teams in the sport. Of course, a lot of that has to do with Micah Parsons, and I get that. But still, you don't have that right now. So I think that's a huge reason why your secondary is just getting picked apart, and then you add to the fact that now your run defense and the guy that you brought in here and Kenny Clark to be the savior has been terrible the last couple of games. You pay Osa all that money, and he's not a game wrecker, that's for sure. And you got these guys getting upfield, getting blown off the ball. I mean, like Nealand getting pushed around by a tight end. You have Sam Williams getting bullied by Xavier Legette. You've got the Carolina Panthers. It wasn't even like they were running for 20 something yards a clip. It was just every single time you handed off the ball to Rico, he was going to get 8 to 10 yards. And it was just all game. Everybody's getting pushed around. I don't understand how Jerry's talking about the defensive line and the pass rush being capable right now. It seems like there's almost nothing capable with this unit, and it goes back to Jerry, Steven, Will McClay, all the team builders putting together a bad unit. You need 11 replacements, I feel like, on this defense right now.
Yeah, this is where you run into, and I experienced this with my own eyes in the early 2000s when I worked in the personnel department, was that you get Jerry and Steven being told things that aren't factual, and Jerry and Steven have been around and watched enough football to know, but they listen to the coaching staff, they listen to the scouting staff. I remember being in meetings where, we were 5-11 football team, and the coaches are talking about the team like we were 11-5. And there needs to be some really, really hard conversations. And maybe there have been. But right now, it just doesn't appear that, everybody would feel a lot better if Jerry and Steven would just stand up there and say, instead of a work in progress, hey, we're not very good at this area. But they really can't do that. They can't do that. And so Jerry has to talk about his edge rushers. He has to be positive about it. But, maybe that's something that the coaching staff is telling him. Steven was very much adamant early when we had discussions with him about manufacturing pass rush once they made the Micah Parsons trade. I feel like there was only one game this year where they really manufactured pass rush, and that was against the Jets. And you described very accurately the deal that the problems that the Jets have on offense. It's clear. But there comes a time in that organization where people are not being truthful to Jerry and Steven about really what's going on. And that's the unfortunate thing that happens, when you have that, when the general manager's asking, for answers that nobody really has a very good answer. It's like, no, Jerry, if we just execute better, things will be fine. Well, in some cases, that's absolutely true. But execution and physically getting beat up front are two different things, are two completely different things. And so, somebody needs to explain the lack of physicality at times last week in the run game. And they need to also come up with, there's examples, like I said earlier, where Matt Eberflus could sit down with Jerry and Steven and say, hey, okay, look what I tried to do here. Clark didn't get it done. Look what I tried to do here. Wanye Thomas didn't get it done. Look what I tried to do here. Sam Williams didn't get it done. So at some point in time, is it a lack of some football intelligence as well? You start to talk about, are the players not taking their, people say, well, there's no buy-in and all that stuff like that. Well, I just feel like that they're just the stuff that they practice on. And there's been some whispers that they've worked a lot on man coverage stuff. They just haven't run it. But there's some whispering going on that there's been in practice where they've worked on man coverage in anticipating and using it, and they just have not. It just has not translated to usage in the game. So maybe they were going to take a couple of weeks and work on some serious stuff with man coverage, and then see about it, in the coming weeks, because they need to do something completely different. But I think that my own experience, I don't think everybody's generally always honest with Jerry and Steven about it. But Jerry and Steven know. I mean, they see it, they watch it themselves, they hear what we're all talking about, but they have to say, oh no, we're comfortable here, when maybe in reality they're really not as comfortable as they're leading everybody to believe.
All right, you're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast. Love of the Star, presented by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and the Love of the Star podcast. And yeah, they are the best in the business. All right, don't wait. Get relief today if your air conditioner is not working. Call the On Time Experts. They'll come to your home the same day, backed by their Stay Cool guarantee. Visit theontimeexperts.com. Click the book now button. You will pay less over time because they correctly diagnose your issue and fix it right the first time. Same day or you don't pay policy for certain repairs. 100% satisfaction guarantee. No excuses, no exceptions. All right, as we turn the page and start to set our sights on the Commanders, they just took the L on Monday night at home to the Bears in a game where it felt like they were just shooting themselves in the foot too often. Felt like they were the better team watching that game. Jaden Daniels, the better quarterback. He has the fumble exchange late in that game that cost some Krosky Merritt dropping the ball. Just too many turnovers for them the other night. And I think their defense certainly can be had. I think the over-under right now, it started at 53.5 for this game. Now I'm seeing it at 55.5 for the total points. And I would still feel comfortable hitting the over. I think both offenses are going to find a way to touch 30 in this one.
Yeah, the Commanders are and we'll see what happens with Terry McLaurin and the injuries. I mean, it's he's missed the last several games with the thigh injury. The thing that makes the Commanders kind of difficult to defend, though, is when they use big personnel. We saw with Carolina using their 12 personnel stuff. I mean, the Commanders are even more. They're a six offensive line or 6+ offensive line. They like to try and get big guys involved, and the run scheme is very similar to what the Cowboys try to do. With you get a lot of the pins, and then you do get the pulls. You get wide receivers involved on the edge. They get condensed formations. They block everybody down. They pull guys. Some of their best plays in the red zone have been where they would get defenders pinned inside and then getting the ball to the outside. They ran an orbit motion in a game earlier this year where they handed the ball to Deebo Samuel and had blockers all in front. And it was just a really well-designed play. But everything it seems to be, they're not really asking their guys to come off and just hammer you. They're taking their guys. And very, very similar to what the Cowboys are doing, trying to get angles, trying to get pullers, trying to get a little push, try and get you where the ball gets to the edge. The backs have done a really nice job. As you mentioned, Krosky Merritt has done a really nice job of getting the ball to the edge. They have some elements of the college offense to it because of the quarterback's ability to Jaden Daniels' ability as a ball handler. He's done a really nice job. So he still scrambles, even though he had the knee where he missed a couple of games, but he's still scrambling at a league high rate when it comes to. He's a guy that he'll just drop back and then he'll see an opportunity where nobody's in his area and he just takes off running it. So it's going to be a difficult task to have to deal with the Commanders, especially with the running game, because I think it's really, really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, they got a handful of backs in there, and the way that Kingsbury, I mean, they run so much shotgun. You always talk about the college offenses, and this is certainly one of those. But he does all sorts of the crazy movement and just orbit motioning, and then bang, it's a fake here, and it's a flip here, and somebody's coming back around. I mean, there's a lot going on from an eye candy standpoint, and then you sprinkle in the fact that Jaden Daniels can take off on you at any time, and he's still kind of recovering from the knee injury. So I wonder how much they really want to intentionally run him. But
he's running on his own. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about designed runs. I don't think they particularly want to do. I was watching Marcus Mariota, I think it was against Atlanta, had a touchdown on a design run, a quarterback draw down on the goal line. So yeah, they like to run the quarterback, but you're absolutely right. How much is designed and how much of it is just Jane Daniels being a football player?
Right, right. And what are you seeing from Jaden Daniels right now? Because obviously he got a little bit banged up, but I still think he is. I mean, especially doing what he did the other night with that group of pass catchers right
Mhm.
now, where you're having to throw to Luke McCaffrey and stuff like that. Still making Zach Ertz find pay dirt, Debo Samuel, but it's like. Man, it's not like he's got a ton to work with. I still have the utmost respect for the type of quarterback that Jaden Daniels is.
Oh no, and really where they take advantage of you is they're a big no huddle team. I want to say it's
Mm.
like, like it's well over there. It's well over 60%. I believe that the number I saw, I think it's 62, 63% of no huddle. So they put a lot of pressure on you that way. It's the highest rate we've seen I've heard, I think I saw the last decade. So they use it like 6 more times on average than what other NFL teams do. So yeah, this is another thing you're going to have to deal with them just getting up on the ball and then keep running plays. And if Dallas is really big on trying to substitute, trying to get different personnel on and off the field. We've seen the Cowboys in the last couple of couple of weeks where they've had 12 men on the field. Don't be surprised if they get caught on a 12 men on the field situation with the way that the Commanders like to do the offense. Where teams have had some success defending Daniels has been by playing man coverage. His completion percentage against man coverage was below 50%. And you watch, and he does have some trouble with, I was watching all the sacks. I think there were 14 sacks that he was a part of. Now there was some where he was out of the pocket and just ran out of bounds, that kind of sacks. And then there were some sacks where they were able to capture him in the pocket. The Giants got him one time. They were trying to throw a screen to the other side, and Giants jumped the routes, and he had to hold the ball, and they got sacked, by Brian Burns off the edge. So, teams playing man coverage against him and blitzing him have been effective, because when he's faced that extra rusher, 5+ rushers, there's been some problems with his completion percentage. But there's other times, like, let's say you play him in some zone coverage, he's going to eat you alive. You play with 2 deep safeties, he's averaging almost 8 yards of completion against 2 deep. So to me, it's going to be about, will Matt Eberflus be willing to blitz him? We saw last week another quarterback, with Bryce Young, that struggled with pressure, and Dallas, I think, blitzed him 5 times in the game. But then again, Carolina was running the ball so well, they really didn't have to throw it. You would hope that maybe you could stop the Commanders and force some situations where you could blitz this guy. I think Mike Zimmer had some success last year blitzing this guy. I need to go back and look at those 2 games. I know one of the games were, very late in the year. It was last game of the year, and then the game that was in Washington, where they did a really nice job of kind of keeping him in the pocket, making him have to make some throws. But they got after him, the double A gap blitzes, things like that. They were able to kind of wreck his rhythm of him throwing the football. And they're going to have to do the same in this game.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Eberflus, come on now. You're laying it out. You're laying it out, man. Play a little bit more man. Get some blitz stuff going, and you can ultimately only be sort of as good as your personnel and your players. But let's go ahead and let's do some of that this week. That would be so frustrating if you don't see enough of that. What about when it comes to how healthy of a screen game do they have offensively?
Yeah, I haven't, they haven't in the past what they've been able to do. Like I said, the one sack that I saw came off a screen. Now you've got backs that can catch the football. You've got tight ends that can catch the football. You got wide receivers when you start to talk about, where, and we'll see, like I say, again, whole thing with Terry McLaurin, they ran a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful play on the, in this last game. I believe it was against the Bears, where they brought the tackle. They faked it like they were throwing a screen to the outside, And what happened is they had Luke McCaffrey act like he was a blocker. Well, they had a couple of guys out there. They had Luke McCaffrey out there, and they also had Zach
Debo.
Ertz. It was Ertz. They had him out
Oh,
there
okay.
too, and they faked the outside screen. And then what happened was McCaffrey was acting like he was going to block, and then when the defense reacted to the screen, they pumped the screen, and McCaffrey went right up the field, nobody around him, touchdown over the top. And then they also had Zach Ertz inside. He could have made a throw to either one of the guys. The Bears defense had bitten on the screen that much. So obviously there's some elements to it. They use it to set up one of the even brought the tackle. They even took the left tackle, Laramie Tunsil, and put him in space to fake the screen and just to kind of give it even more of a realistic look. And then McCaffrey ran just straight up the field. He was wide open and just an easy pitch and catch. So yeah, there's elements to the thing. It's really, when you watch them play, I mean, it's the motions. You're right about that. The formations, the route combinations. They're going to really test Dallas in a couple of areas, because like I say, the no huddle will test Dallas being able to get on and off the field. And then the how he throws the ball, the route combinations. If they continue to play a lot of zone, you're going to have guys just running through zones, and you have 2 or 3 guys running through a zone and then breaking off each other. That's going to be really difficult for Dallas to have to deal with as well.
How much has Laramie Tunsil in that addition you feel like helped them?
They've struggled with some pressures, and I mentioned the sacks. Tunsil, he has given him some stability. I think the guy that's the first round pick that they had, Josh Connerly, the right tackle, number 72, has been the one that's had the most problems. So that's something that if Dallas were to say, hey, go after somebody, the right tackle has been the biggest issue. Tunsil, he's a veteran guy, that he's not going to give up very much. They've been, like I say, they ask him not to have to hammer anybody in the run game. There's just this pin and pull, the down blocks, everything about that has been really, really pretty. But if you're going to go after somebody, the guy that has given up the pressures, I mentioned, is the right tackle, the rookie, Josh Connerly. When he doesn't move his feet, he gets in trouble. But the Cowboys have played these guys before. Like, they've played guys that haven't been feet movers or powerful guys, and they just haven't always taken advantage of them. But if you're going to try, it's the right tackle is where you need to attack.
Okay, very good. Anything else about the Commanders' offense you feel like we should know before we get to the mailbag?
Yeah, I think that, like I say, I think Krosky Merritt, the running back, is really going to be a problem to deal with. If you thought that Rico Dowdle was tough, Krosky Merritt has very, very similar type of characteristics. His ability, he could catch the football out of the backfield, yards after catch has really been good for him. He's got 60 carries for 344 yards and 4 touchdowns. This is a little over 4.2 a carry, but man, we've seen this before. Here's a guy that all of a sudden they kind of get the running game going with the way that the scheme works, and now you got a guy on the edge, and he's taking advantage of some nice blocking up front. They've got another back in Jeremy McNichols. He's number 26, and he's a guy that's averaging about 7.2 a carry. Every once in a while you see him in the game. Austin Eckler, he's out with the Achilles, so you're not going to see him. Austin Eckler was just outstanding throughout his career, but no longer part of this. But yeah, they've got a couple of legitimate backs when it comes to Krosky Merritt and Jeremy McNichols, two guys that Dallas is going to have to be able to handle and get along the line of scrimmage, and not if they're going to run blitz, make sure that you get linebackers in place and all that. But that's been very, very difficult to for them to do. And you kind of don't expect it to happen this week. They haven't shown the ability to do it yet. So, it's like I say, it's just hopefully you get a mistake that the Commanders make, you get a holding penalty, you get something that takes them back, you get the fumble like the Bears got the other day. And, maybe that'll make a difference in the game. You got to find a way to get one or two more stops a game. And until that's the case, Dallas's offense is going to have to basically score every possession, because this Commanders offense, the way it's set up, can score right along with you if they have to.
Yeah, this is probably one of those games you need 36 to 40 points.
Yeah,
to
you're
win.
You're gonna need a strange play, a tip ball. We've seen where Jane Daniels against the Bears, threw an interception down in the red zone. He normally doesn't make mistakes, but the other day in that game where it was raining, there's a couple times where he was running the ball, he just dropped it, but slippery ball and all that. But with the dry conditions at AT&T Stadium, I don't anticipate. We'll see. We'll see if he can throw you one or two interceptions, but that's not generally his MO. But this offense, just the play caller's got some really creative ways, and I think it's going to be able to stress Flus out. Now, we saw last year with him in the game against the Bears and the Commanders, they did a pretty nice job of holding him in check, but you don't have a lot of that. The Bears did a really good job on tape. When you watched how they were playing, they had a very, very physical front, and that gave the Commanders a little problem, with Tyler Biotish and that group. But it's can Dallas replicate that type of scheme? It's going to be difficult for them the way they're currently playing.
All right, you're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts, presented by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's go ahead and get into the Dean Julia mailbag here. And we got a handful of questions just about like some injury updates. You had Tyler Smith come back for the Panthers game. Didn't quite look like himself. Of course, we're still waiting on Lamb, Booker, Turpin. How are we feeling about those guys?
Well, we'll see. Like I said, today will be the first day of actual practice. We'll see if in fact these guys start with Britt Brown, then all of a sudden it's likely that you probably won't see them for the week. But if they're actually part of practice, we've seen guys that practice limited and things like that. But it sounds like to me they're kind of setting up for some moves that they might have to make. With Cropper being waived, is that the move that's going to get Mingo back on the active roster and stuff like that? So we'll see. How things, like I say, it was trending in the right way for Booker and for Lamb. But we'll see, like with this being the Wednesday practice, if they're over there with Britt Brown, I would say then you're probably another week away from being that. But Wednesday will tell you a lot of, I think, the direction of where they're going here.
Okay, Jason Williams is asking about the rushing attack offensively, and are we to be concerned now moving forward based on how poor they ran the ball versus Carolina?
Well, if everybody in the league has the law firm I mentioned of Brown, Robinson, and Brown, that was a big problem. They just did not. If teams where you should be concerned is if teams figure out ways to penetrate and throw off your running scheme, because you are much like what we were talking about with the Commanders, your down block guys, your pull guys, your pin guys. Where the Cowboys are really effective is when like a guy like Steele and Booker get together and they mash that defensive tackle, and then you get the puller with Hunter Lipke maybe coming with you, or Tolbert, somebody like that coming with you. Once they get that movement on that front side, play side, defensive lineman, then that allows the kick out blocks, the log blocks, all those things that you can run the football with. But if you play against a defense that is quick up the field but plays with power and kind of holds you or stalemates those blocks or splits those blocks or causes disruption in those blocks, there's your concern, because then Dallas is going to have to go to just straight running the ball and try and just power gap things. But their pull game is really the best way that they run the football. But if you get penetration, that kills all that type of the scheme. That just, if you can't handle that, then you're not going to be running the ball like you're very good at.
Dean Julia asking, at what point do we start putting the entire plate on the offense? Anything 4th and 5 or less past your own 40, it's auto
Yeah.
green light. Maybe
Yeah.
start going for 2 more often to maximize points, get creative to maximize the offense. Yeah, I mean, I don't really disagree with that at all. I think we're at that place now. I mean, we've known for weeks. I mean, we knew really going into the season, as long as Dak was going to be healthy, your offense was going to have to do all of the heavy lifting here. And I do think you saw some signs where Shoddy was getting a little bit more aggressive in that Panthers game, hitting some 4th downs a little bit more. But when you look big picture on the season, he has not been overly aggressive in those go situations. He will settle for a kick a little bit more often than I would like. And I think as the season goes on and you start to get an even better picture of just the identity of this football team, I think going for it like at a Dan Campbell rate is totally in play here.
Yeah. Well, what you got to know is, and this is where I was getting on coaches about not knowing the condition of their team. I think game flow will dictate that. If you get into a game where, like, say, for example, against the Commanders, they get the opening kick and drive it 7-0, and then you come back and you drive it and it goes 7-all, and then you come back and the Commanders drive it again, and now they've taken a lot of time, and now your defense is looking like it's going to be one of those days, then it turns into, we got to go now. Their defense is not going to stop. Now, all of a sudden, if your defense is doing some positive things where you do get a stop, you get another stop, and it's not every series that they're either scoring a touchdown or kicking a field goal, then maybe you could get into like, okay, I got to call the game this way. But if you get in some of these shootout games, like a Green Bay game, a Giants game, yeah, if you know your defense that day is not going to get, hell, they're not stopped, like Carolina never got the 3rd down. I mean, that's Carolina had 20 some odd first downs. And I think they only had 8 3rd down attempts in the game. So that, if that's the case, if somebody is just beating you up that way, you might now have to consider, like, listen, I cannot punt the football at this point. But if your defense somehow miraculously is playing better and you're getting a couple of stops along the way, maybe that changes the path. But if it turns into every time there's a possession, there's a score, then you got to go, because punting is going to lose you the football game.
Starlin, Thundercat 254, acknowledging that we've discussed Clayton Adams and Connor Riley quite a bit in a positive way in the run game. But what about from a passing game standpoint with guys like Ken Dorsey and Steve Shimko and how they've helped Dak Prescott?
Yeah.
What have you noticed about that?
Dak's seeing the field better, and Dak is able to turn his back to the defense and kind of find where everybody is. I think this is stuff I think these coaches have helped Dak with his pocket presence. You say, well, damn, Brian, he's a 10-year veteran. Shouldn't he know these things? Well, yeah, you still kind of learn things along the way. But I think Dak's eyes are better. I think he's seeing the field better. I think these coaches are helping him with that. I think they're helping him in the play action game, find where everybody is and know where everybody is and trust where everybody is. But also, too, his ability to slide and to move in the pocket. These are all things you could talk about. The eye level doesn't move you in the pocket. The feel moves you in the pocket. And I think these coaches have helped Dak a little bit with, when you feel this, move. Don't let your eyes tell you that. Let the feel tell you that. Keep your eyes downfield. I think that's where Dak has really benefited from these coaches.
Dal Chamberlain asking, last week we talked about what the record would need to be buyers at the deadline, but what does the record look like before you think about selling?
Yeah, I mean, that's selling is it's always a possibility. I don't know if it's a possibility with this team. I just don't think it's Steven or Jerry's MO to sell. But I'm curious about their ability to buy, and I think they will buy, and I think they'll buy for the reason of that maybe the division could be for the taking. Now you go out and lose this game and then go out and lose the Denver game and say the Eagles win their next two, the Commanders win their next two, and things be kind of, and the Giants all of a sudden look better, start winning a game or two, then things could look a lot different. I would just hold pat and say, okay, this season is what it is. And, people say, oh, well, this team is 3-5 at one time and they reeled off a bunch of victories after the Amari Cooper trade. That's very true. But I think that Jerry is looking to make a deal, but I think he's looking to make a deal, and with the eye on like, okay, what's my team going to look like? But he's also looking at this division, which is why I think he might be aggressively active in trying to do something, because he maybe feels like, well, maybe the Eagles aren't that good. Maybe if you beat the Commanders, well, now they're 3-4, and you're ahead of them, and you're just a half game behind the Eagles, say. I think the division and how it's going will dictate more so than any other thing for Jerry Jones.
Sean Cunningham asking if behind closed doors, do we believe Shoddy and or Jerry is putting heat on Eberflus to right the ship, or do they just understand the reality of the poor personnel?
No, they're talking about. I've been a part of these things. They can't come out and tell you and I. They can't come out and be, like they can't come out and say, "Hey, listen, we're horse shit right now, and we know it." And they can't say it. We're bad. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. I mean, everybody would love for them to say that. Everybody would love for them to be blatantly honest. Everybody would love for them to be like Tua down there in Miami and just say, what's on his mind. But they're not going to do that. But behind the scenes, absolutely. There's pressure on the defensive coaches, absolutely. There's pressure. There's pressure on the offensive coaches because they realize their defense is not very good. I mean, Dak Prescott knows, he said, hey, these next two games will tell us who we are. Dak knows you're very, very poor on defense. He just can't come out and say it. He knows that he is going to be some days that he is going to be 31 of 39, throw 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and probably lose the game. He knows that. It's all he could do just to take care of his own, try and take care of the offense, score as many points as you can, and hope that the defense finds a stop along the way, like they did. They got to stop. They got to stop in that Carolina game at the end. Dak and them have got to take advantage of that. The play caller didn't help him with that throwback screen. That just wasn't a good call right there. 3 more balls to Pickens, you might win that football game. But that was the one time that Dallas really blinked on offense, and it cost them their game.
Yeah, that was a brutal fourth quarter offensively, no doubt. Yeah. Despite how bad your defense played in that game, your offense did have a chance to at least go retake that lead.
Right, sure.
And they couldn't get it done.
Yeah,
great, exactly. Great field position. That was really, really unfortunate. Okay, what would be your? Do you have any type of wacky suggestions if you're in that meeting right now and Eberflus is like, Broadus, give me something. It might be ridiculous.
Well, I just look at the things. I look at the metrics and what my eyes are telling me watching the Commanders tape on offense. We'll see what the Commanders defensive tape looks like. But to the point of Eberflus, I'm playing the numbers. I'm thinking, okay, this guy doesn't handle pressure. We need to figure out a pressure package. These receivers don't handle, say, press coverage all that well. I would try and find a way. Like I say, I'm looking at the metrics to go along with the tape. If you're telling me that this quarterback will struggle when you play man coverage against him, I'm going to try and play man coverage. When he plays against split safeties or zone coverage, I mean, he's a killer. He's 7.5 yards, almost 8 yards a pass. When it comes to playing, against too deep and playing against zone coverage, I'm going to force him to have to deal with blitz. I'm going to force him to have to deal with man coverage, and I'm going to see if he can handle those things. Then I deserve to lose the game. But I am going to play. I'm going to play in a way, and I always say this about Matt. He's got to play uncomfortable. If they've in fact been working on man coverage during the week for a chance to use it in a game, This needs to be the week to use it because this quarterback's a different quarterback dealing with man coverage as he is with zone.
Boom. All right, there it is, your Dean Julian mailbag here on the Love of the Star podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and thank you to the on-time experts. We'll be back here on Saturday with your full game preview as we get you set for now Week 7 in the NFL. Big divisional game with the Commanders in town, and we'll break it down for you all on Saturday. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, be well.